I want to welcome Agile XRM to the podcast. I've known the people at Agile XRM for the past 12 years. I've seen how their business process management tool can add massive value to complex organizational processes in sectors such as finance and government. If you have complex processes or a need for dialogues on the Power Platform or Dynamics 365, take a look at how this BPM tool can add value. You can find them at agilexrm.com or check out the show notes for more details. Welcome to the MVP Show. My intention is that you listen to the stories of these MVP guests and are inspired to become an MVP and bring value to the world through your skills. If you have not checked it out already, I do a YouTube series called How to Become an MVP. The link is in the show notes. With that, let's get on with the show. Today's guest is from Texas in the United States. He is a SharePoint and Power Platform solution developer and architect at CompuSoft. He was first awarded his MVP in 2021. He's a big fan of the Power Platform and all the technologies surrounding it. He's implemented many solutions in the space. He's also an international speaker at various SharePoint Saturday events, Office 365 events, and user groups. You can find the links to his bio and anything we discuss in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the show, Krishna.
Thank you, Mark.
Good to have you on the show. I'm interested in talking to you, and I always like to discover a bit around your origin. Where did you come from? Based on your name, I assume that you come from somewhere in Asia. Can you tell us a bit about where you originated?
Definitely. And before I start, it was a great privilege to be part of your show. I was following all the podcasts, and it was really wonderful to know about a lot of other MVPs and a lot of things.
Thank you.
It was really great. So coming back to your question, I'm from southern part of India. That's where I'm from. There is a small village, or you can say district, called Vijayanagaram, near to Visakhapatnam in South Asia. That's where I'm from, and I came to US almost like 13, 14 years back. And finally settled down. And I have two kids, two daughters, wonderful daughters. So, yeah, it's been a long journey.
Very nice. When it comes to what you miss from home, what do you miss the most?
Definitely all parents, staying with the parents for a long time, and all my friends, school, college friends, and relatives, all the places where I grew up and visited throughout my early life. I really miss them.
I bet. When you're not spending time with your family or doing work, do you have any hobbies or anything like that you work on?
Yes, I really love gardening, especially during spring to fall season. I in my backyard I grow a lot of Indian vegetables, and that's actually it's a dual purpose. One is a stress buster. The gardening is stress buster, so that's another way. And especially in the weekends, I play some gully cricket as well.
Awesome. Like every good person from India, they play cricket, right?
Play cricket, yes.
Tell me, I mean, cricket in New Zealand's a big deal as well, right? Because as it is in Australia and, of course, the UK. Tell me about this garden and what type of, and the reason I'm asking, garden is my stress relief as well. I do a lot of vegetable gardening, and so I grow everything from seed, and I have a little greenhouse and then into the garden. Tell me about the type of vegetables, because I'm interested to see, because obviously different climates and things affect what you would have in India to what you've got there. So what have you got in your garden that's typically of Indian origin?
Because I live in Texas here, it's the atmosphere weather is pretty much close to what we have in India. So the weather is really hot and I mean not cold definitely. So the vegetables mostly I grow are tindora, okra, snake gourd, bitter gourd, very that you can find mostly in southern part of India or throughout the India. You will find a lot of these vegetables. Most of them are creepers, so you need a lot of trellis to hold very long creepers, and they all mix up so many times. So,
Do you grow curry?
what curry?
Do you grow curry? Any curry plants?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Eggplants. Okra is another curries.
I didn't know that. I didn't know. I've just gone and put my first curry plant in, and they say that sometimes it will flavor all the other plants around it, as in it impacts. And so I'm looking forward to see. At the moment, I don't know, it's about that, yay high, about a half a meter high, and so I'm looking forward to that because it's just, turmeric is another one that I grow. And it's, I don't think anything beats fresh turmeric, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, when you talk about leafy leaves, like the curry leaves is one, and the mint is also extraordinary, like very smelly and very beautiful. Like when you get it from your garden and use it, it's awesome.
Mm, mm, mm. 100%. I want to get to the point that all my vegetables are pretty much coming from my garden. I'm working on that. It's a journey because every time you plant something, sometimes it just doesn't work the way you thought it was going to work. And, you're always I'm always tackling pests. And then there's the right balance of fertilizer and of water, of course. So, very interesting. Very interesting. Tell us about how you got into technology.
Oh, but technology back in college, when I was studying my plus two, after my plus two, then I started my undergrad, and during that time, I was started getting introduced. I mean, I was introduced to some of the computer languages like Basic, Fortran, COBOL, and C languages during my undergrad. But I was into mathematics and statistics during that time. My computers was not my major, but because that time in India, like a lot of people were learning computer, keeping the future in mind, so I also joined. But it was definitely like I used to enjoy the technology because a lot of algorithms and all driven, like mathematics driven and statistics and other things. So I used to enjoy writing all those programs. So that's how I started, and after that I really got into a computer degree. It's called masters in computer applications, and then I seriously pursued further into it for 3 more years, and then certified in Java when I was in college. And after that, that was the time Microsoft released C Sharp. C Sharp 1.0. I used to enjoy that C Sharp because it was the syntax, the modeling, the oops concepts, and everything is same as Java. So I used to enjoy working in that. So from then I stick to Microsoft.
Nice. How did you end up getting into SharePoint? I take it that was where you kind of moved into ultimately the Power Platform, but was it from a SharePoint side of things?
So when I was into all these Microsoft technologies, but primarily I used to develop some kind of in-house tools by using C Sharp and Windows applications and ASP.NET and all of that. I used to work for a product-based company, and I used to automate all of their process, and also providing some testing in-house tools by using all of this technology. So while I was working on it, I was introduced to the SharePoint back in 2007, and then that was the very first time I saw something like a content management, and which was pretty easy to handle at that time. Also, it was okay to work on. But that's when I started looking into SharePoint. But eventually, a lot of requests are coming through, coming to my plate, and I became like a more full time SharePointer, for SharePoint developer, and not just user interface, but I used to write all of SharePoint form solutions and timer jobs, event receipts, those kind of all server side code and all of that.
Interesting. And so when did you start transitioning to the Power Platform?
I worked in SharePoint more than a decade, and suddenly one fine day, Microsoft announced there were some Microsoft webinars and all happening, and when we were trying to upgrade SharePoint, so one version to another version and all of that, after 2013 version 2016 was announced, and in between sometime the in SharePoint, especially info path forms were used extensively, and SharePoint designer workflows. But there was an announcement that in after 19 version or something, they are not no more going to support designer workflows and all of that. And also there was a news about InfoPath discontinuing the InfoPath form as well. That's when I came to know about something is coming up, but was not sure what is coming. But still, I was working in SharePoint, and I happened to work with Reza Dorani. Probably you know, right? Reza Dorani. So I used to work with him. So that time, I was given a Power Platform project, and he was my mentor that time. And he actually also saw the future of Power Apps, because Power Platform, that's what's going to come up. So he introduced me to that, and then he helped me learn a lot. Before, he was very active in the community. He used to help us so much. So he was a very great mentor. And then that's how I introduced. I worked on for, a business application, and then after that, I didn't even look back from then. It's been 4.5 years, or something like that, 5 years almost. So it was a great learning working with him that time.
That's so good. That's so good. So tell us about what are you typically doing day to day now? Now that you've been working with the technology obviously for 4 or 5 years. What's your main things that you do day to day?
One thing is, even though my background was SharePoint, I never considered that as my main technology foundation. But because my main technology foundation is the .NET and C Sharp and the basic coding skills, so I never left that. So one thing is, as part of my day-to-day activity, uh, almost like 4 years I have been updating myself what is coming next and what is happening right now in the market. Even though one feature is released by Microsoft, 10 different clients, or 10 in the community, 10 different people uses the same feature for 10 different use cases. So trying to learn from each other's samples and all of that. So getting updated is definitely one of my activity every day. Second thing is how I can provide the best. I interact with a lot of clients every single day as as part of a consultant one. So I try to advise them what's coming next and how they should prioritize choosing in different data sources and all of that. So nowadays I'm doing kind of a less, not less definitely, but moderate hands-on work in end-to-end development of business applications and process automation. But apart from that, I'm also investing more time in as a evangelist or architecting the solutions and enlightening the clients what is coming next and how they can govern their platform, how they can adopt the platform in a much because we have the center of excellence tools with different so many components and add-ons. So how they can leverage them to utilize and plan for their future. So I'm advocating all of that.
Nice. One thing you mentioned there was about keeping yourself updated, and particularly about what's out in the community. What's your technique? Like, do you have some software tools around that, like RSS readers? Like, what's your technique for your daily, and how much time do you spend? Because I think this is an area that a lot of people don't realize, is that to maintain your skills as an MVP, you've got to constantly be learning. What you did last year doesn't count anymore. It's like you've got to constantly be evolving your skill set. So what's your kind of pattern, or what's that task that you do repeatedly daily, and kind of like what tools are you using to do it?
There are multiple things. There is not a single item. There are. I do follow a lot of other MVPs and Microsoft Twitter handles and LinkedIn handles and all of that. So I'll keep my all those social media like a Twitter, LinkedIn. They keep on opening, like they are on my desktop every time when something comes up. I will queue them up to my learning time. At least not necessarily that we have to go in depth and read every single article word by word, but at least continuously get the summary out of it. And if it is interesting to me, I will make that a list for my weekend demo or a POC kind of a opportunity, or maybe after hours work or something like that. And also on top of it, in my current consulting company, I do kind of lead a Power Platform a presentation team, like a presentations every couple of weeks. I need to coordinate with other resources to present and talk about latest updates or show some demos and all of that. I tend to create, so that actually also motivates me to learn from the community and come up with some new samples, or get the latest news, what is happening, what is Microsoft releasing, which are in preview or experimental and general available. Based on that, we can recommend to the customer as well. So I do present, I collect that news every week, and accumulate that and present in that session as well.
Nice. That's brilliant. It's a good routine to have. So who nominated you? How did you become an MVP?
So, as I said earlier, I used to work with Reza Dorani, so he nominated me, and the way I became, initially my dream to become MVP was not in last 4 or 5 years. It was there almost more than a decade, because I used to follow Andrew Connell, a SharePoint MVP that time, and I think he's still an MVP for sure. He does a lot of presentations and all of that. I used to read all his SharePoint books and all of that, and I used to dream, like, I don't know the channel how to become MVP, but because when I was working with Reza, he became MVP, and then he shared his success story. I mean, I have seen myself how hard work he put in to become MVP. So being in consulting job, we need to keep up to date, right, ourselves. So I felt like, anyway, like we do that up to date. We try to keep ourselves up to date. So why can't I get the same up to date activity from the community? So then I started getting engaged into Power Apps and Power Automate, Power Virtual, and all of those user forms and community, and started answering questions. I used to put almost like, I spent like an almost an year to reach up to the level of a super users in those communities and all of that. It was really, whatever, if I need to learn from a book or a blog or something, probably I wouldn't learn so many use cases if I don't step into the community forum. So right, in the community forum, every single day, if I read 10 different posts, I will learn 10 different use cases. I used to learn like maybe 1 year of work within 3 months, uh, something like that. I really enjoyed it. So slowly, once I got activated, became active in answering all those questions. Then I started getting involved into local user groups and speaking, all of that. So that actually, speaking is definitely a great activity. I say we have so many thoughts in mind, but you need to channelize that in a appropriate way to make the audience appealing, and then so that they can take back something that they never learned before. So you need, everybody, there are so many presentations around. Still, the way we communicate to the users is always needs to be unique and different and more interesting. So that's definitely a lot of learning present skills that I learned a lot of skills while presenting or speaking.
So good. Krishna, thank you so much for what you've shared. I think you've given lots of tips. I've got a lot of learnings today. I'm going to go out and find okra. Okra it is, right?
Okay.
Okra. I need to get that in my garden. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mark. And also, on top of it, before I close, I do one more activity called Power Apps for Kids. I do the training for the kids who are like mostly in high school and college students, so that they can do some science projects in by using these apps, and or the college projects and all of that. I do every year, at least for a season. So there is my website is like a KrishnaRachakonda.com. So if you if anybody is interested, please check that site as well.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If you like the show and want to be a supporter, check out buymeacoffee.com/NZ365 Guy. Thanks again, and see you next time.